welcome to our Q4 and full year 2018-19 Concall. In line with Q3 results, our Q4 performance continued to be robust. However, international global steel markets got off to a tepid start in the early 2019 compared to the last 8 quarters. In the January-March quarter, the international steel production minus China showed a negative growth of 0.8% after 3 years of growth, while the Chinese steel production grew by a very healthy 9.5%. And since China produces practically half of the total world steel, the entire world steel production still grew by about 4.5%. The geopolitical conditions in the world remain confusing due to the growing protectionism and prospects of a trade war between some of the large economies of the world. The trade sanctions on Iran and uncertain economic developments in Turkey also have had an effect on our business. Along with a large growth of 9.5% in steel production in China, their electric arc furnace steel production growth remains strong in line with the government's push to replace polluting blast furnace steel capacities by electric arc furnaces. China, which used to produce no more than about 6% of its steel through electric arc furnace till 2016, now is at a level of around 11%, and is likely to reach about 20% by the middle of 2021. This is a staggering growth of more than 3 times, from about 50 million tons to 160 million tons in a short period of 4 years. China was sitting with electric arc furnace production of just about 6% only 2 years ago, while if you look at this figure for the rest of the world, it was about 47 to 48%. Obviously, a country which is more than trebling their electric arc furnace production in a very short time would also need to add similar 3 times capacities of graphite electrodes. And this is exactly what is happening there. We believe there has been some sort of a timing mismatch here. While some of the new brownfield graphite capacities have come up a bit earlier than the new greenfield capacities of electric arc furnace steel. And that has probably given rise to a higher than required graphite electrodes availability in China, and thus China's ability to export these electrodes at dumping prices. We believe it is a short-term phenomenon, and as they start operating the new electric arc furnaces, which are in the pipeline, all these additional electrode capacities will start getting used up within China. Friends, while I have tried to explain this issue in some details, preempting some of the questions that you may have in your mind, I need to further clarify that China only produces what we call non-UHP, non-ultra-high power electrodes, and they do not produce any UHP, ultra-high power, which is what the 80% of the rest of the world market is. China is not competing with us in the UHP segment either in India or elsewhere in the world. And their adding new capacities of electrodes is of little concern to us as they continue to add more and more capacities for what we call the non-UHP electrodes. While we produce between 75 to 80% of our production in the UHP segment and only the balance 20 to 25% in the non-UHP segment where we do compete with China. We are looking at the possibilities of producing more and more of UHP products and reduce our business of non-UHP. We have been exporting our products to more than 30 countries around the world for a very long time, and we are fairly well entrenched to export more of the UHP products. Chinese export of steel started declining since 2017 due to large capacity shutdowns initiated by the Chinese government 2 years ago. Their exports came down from about 115 million tons per annum in 2015-16 to about 75 million tons in 17, and further down to about 69 million tons in 2018. In the first 4 months of 2019, their actual export figure is about 23 million tons, which on an annualized basis again comes to 69 million tons. So all in all, China has reduced their export of steel from about 115 million tons to somewhere in the region of 69-70 million tons, a reduction of about 45 million tons. Obviously, this has helped our business immensely, as the rest of the world now produces 45 to 50 million tons of additional steel as compared to the pre-2017 time. And given that the rest of the world produces a significant part of its steel through the electric arc furnace route, and this is how the electrode demand has shot up in the last 2 years. As you know, we had announced our capacity expansion from current levels of 80,000 tons to about 100,000 tons about 6 months ago. We've already ordered all the long delivery equipment, and the construction activities at the site is progressing as per schedule. As we mentioned earlier, we should be ready by mid-2021, and after a stabilization period of about 4 to 6 months, we should be in the market with these additional products from early 2022. We continue to believe that the current world demand and capacity of graphite electrodes is more or less in balance, and even considering a very modest growth of about 2% per annum in the world steel, we should be able to sell all our additional volumes of electrodes when we are ready in 2021-2022. More so, as it takes a minimum time of 3 years for any brownfield expansion, and no other country in the world has announced any expansion of their graphite capacities in the world. Scrap prices have shown a decline of about 5% since January, whereas iron ore prices have suddenly jumped up by about 40 to 45% in the same 4 months, which helps large electric arc furnace steel producers to make a switch from blast furnaces to electric arc furnace. India's demand for steel is expected to be firm in the immediate future. Indian Steel Association expects construction sector growth of about 6.5 to 7% per annum in India, and a similar growth in the capital goods and the railway sectors are also projected. So we believe that there will be healthy growth of domestic demand for graphite electrodes. The UHP electrode demand as well as prices still remain strong, which is approximately 80% of our production. However, the non-UHP electrode prices have been impacted by the fall of prices and imports coming in from China since the removal of the anti-dumping duty in September 18. With this, I would now hand over the floor to our CFO, Gulshan, to take you through all the financial numbers, and then we'll be very happy to answer any queries that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For the quarter ended March 2019, HEG recorded revenue from operations of rupees 1347 crore as against 1865 crore in the previous quarter and rupees 1292 crore in the corresponding quarter of last financial year. EBITDA including other income stood at rupees 830 crore in quarter 4, 1351 crore of previous quarter and 954 crore in the corresponding quarter of the last financial year. company reported a net profit of 5 to 4 crore in quarter 4 as against profit of rupees 867 crore in the previous quarter and rupees 634 crore in the corresponding quarter of last financial year. Company has reported its highest ever turnover and profit after tax during the financial year 2019. We stood at rupees 6593 crore as turnover and rupees 3050 crore as net profit for the financial year 2018-19. Net sales and also the segment results in our power segment are lower in FY19 versus FY18 as we have been able to negotiate a mutually beneficial terms with the government utility company and replace part of the high-cost self-generated power, which is thermal, with the power purchase from the State Electricity Board. This step has not only reduced the volume of captive generation and transfer to graphite, but also reviewed the average realization in power segment as the revenue in power segment is booked based on the corresponding rate of power as defined by the state-run utilities. While this step has reduced revenue and bottom line in the power segment, it has had a very favorable impact on the overall power cost of graphite electrode making. The increase in annual employee benefit expenses over financial year 18 is primarily on account of payment of one-time incentive to employees and provisioning of profit-related commission payable to the chairman of the company at a rate of 2.5% under the contractual terms of his appointment. Increase in absolute value of power and fuel over FY18 is attributed to increased level of production. The company is debt-free and have been handling a treasury operations to the tune of nearly rupees 1,400 crore as on date, and average return has been around 8% per annum on the same. As on 31st March 2019, the company held 29.48% in the Bhilwara Energy, an associate company of HEG Limited. The company acquired additional shares based on the fair valuation done by the independent valuer. The fair valuation of share of BEL is rupees 50.09, which was determined by the independent valuer and which was done based on the operating assets of the BEL. The material uncertainty relating to the going concern of one of the subsidiaries of BEL on consolidated financial statement of the HEG have been reported as there is no operations under the above stated subsidiary. Non-operating assets of the said subsidiaries has been written off in the books of BEL. With this background, I would request questions which we can clarify more. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. We will now begin with the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask questions may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. To ask questions, please press star and 1. The first question is from the line of Sonali Salgaonkar from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Sir, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. So my first question is, would you be able to share your average ASPs for Q4 and FY19 for the electrodes as well as needle coke cost?
Yes, fine. See, as you are aware, I mean, we don't talk of very specific numbers, obviously, because it's a competitive market and we would not like to share this information publicly. But all I can tell you is that in the current quarter, the January-March quarter that we are talking about, as I said, the prices of electrode and prices of our main raw material coke have been more or less as good, a little lower compared to previous quarter.
Okay. Sir, looking at this question is more so from the industry perspective. Looking at the current situation, and as you explained about China and many other moving parts around here, going forward, say in the next 2 to 3 quarters, how do you foresee the prices of electrodes and needle coke? Should we expect some softening or of more softening of needle coke prices, or how would the electrode prices behave going on from here?
So I'll take up the needle coke question, which is easier to answer. Our needle coke is more or less decided on a semi-annual basis. So our prices for January-June half, the first half, are already frozen. And as you know, electrode production cycle is anywhere between 2 and 5 months. So whatever shipments which will happen up till June will take, let's say, 45, 50 days to reach, and then depending upon the product mix, takes anywhere between 2 to 5 months to produce. So more or less, whatever we are getting in the first half, for which we have frozen the prices, we know the prices, it will more or less take us through up till November, December of this year. Number one. And number two, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we would know what the needle coke prices are likely to be in the second half. Those discussions are just about to start, and given the softening of the market as we are aware about, I hope that at least there should not be any increase on the prices. If there is no decrease, at least I'm hoping that there will be no further increase on the coke cost.
And globally, are the needle coke supplies shrinking, or have the players, deferring their capacity additions in needle coke?
You see, just like electrode, it's a technology issue. There are no more than, let's say, 2 to 3 large main producers of needle coke. And to the best of my remembrance, probably the last needle coke plant which would have been put up in the world must have been about 25, 30 years ago. It's more or less the similar situation in graphite. We came in 1977, and we have been the last new entrant in the graphite business in the world. So it's not a question of supply shrinking, but the suppliers have not increased. There have been little increases in their capacities over the last 20, 25 years. So the suppliers are restricted, and whatever capacities they have is all that they have. And a new needle coke plant will take, my guess is minimum 6 to 7 years time to rebuild, even if one of these existing players wanted to put up a greenfield plant. So that is the kind of timeline that we are talking about. And a new capacity in the graphite electrode business similarly would take anywhere between 5 to 6 years. And as I said, a simple 20,000 tons brownfield expansion for somebody like us is going to take us about 3.5 years' time.
Sure. So, and my last question, sir, coming to the graphite electrode prices, I understand that again there are a lot of moving parts around here, but in your view, should we expect firming up of realizations going forward, or we could expect some weakness in the coming quarters?
See, as I said, based on the first 4 months of export of steel, see, Chinese, your question is, let's say, connected very, very, very closely with what happens with China. And when I mean what happens with China, I mean how much of steel exports they do. As I said in my remarks, Chinese exports of steel have come down by about 45-50 million tons. And they are more or less stable at about 65-70 million tons, which used to be as much as 115-120 million tons 3 years ago. So this 50 million tons of steel exports, which has dropped, has meant the rest of the world, everybody except China, needs to produce this 45-50 million tons of steel. And in that part of the world, close to 50% of steel is produced through the electric arc furnace, where the electrodes are required. So that 50 million ton of drop of export of steel in the last 2-3 years has suddenly given rise to an additional production of 25-30 million tons of electric arc furnace-based steel, which is where more electrodes are going. So, given the last 3 years' data which we have shared with you, China has now more or less stabilized their export of steel at about 65-70 million tons, and that is not growing. And that is also not growing because, on one hand, China has also closed about 150 million tons of the blast furnace capacity. So they've closed 150 million tons of capacity. Chinese economic growth still continues to be very robust, which means that their demand for steel internally is growing by about 6-7%, while capacities have been shut. So all this indicates that their export of steel is not going to go up anymore. I mean, it would be more or less in the region of 65-70 million tons, which is what we have seen. So to that extent, it gives us some confidence to say that we don't see any drop in the electric arc furnace production outside of China, which is directly connected to the demand of electrodes.
Got it, sir. So this has been a very helpful. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Lalit Kariwala from BS Securities. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. I can hear you.
Yes, please. See, my question is, now where do you see the operating profit margins, which have shrunk, from last year to this year? Moving ahead, where do you see operating profit margins? How much you will be able to maintain, company can be able to maintain? Percentage of OPMs.
See, obviously, it's a matter of sales price and the cost, which in our case, the major cost is the needle coke and power. So to the extent that we produce our own power, practically everything that we use is produced internally. So we have a fairly strong handle on the cost of power. The only other major cost is needle coke. And in response to my earlier question, I gave a very lengthy explanation about needle coke, and I'm hoping that there is no change in the needle coke price from July onwards. And as I said also that given that it is imported and given that our process itself is 2 to 5 months, more or less, even if there's a decrease or an increase in the price of needle coke, its impact will only be felt after about 6 months or so, because our prices for January, June are known and they're all frozen.
So, for this year, we were able to have this operating profit margin at 61.22%. So do you think we will be able to maintain that same levels, or you expect a further reduction in OPMs?
No. Answer to that question is very simple, no. I mean, obviously, we will not be able to maintain a 60-65% kind of margin. I mean, we got this bonanza in the last 4, 5, 6 quarters. And as I said, the market is now stabilizing. There was a lot of panic buying when suddenly a very major thing happened because of China, which suddenly raised the demand of electrodes by 60-70,000 tons. So there was a lot of panic buying because of the sudden event which took place. Now, as I mentioned in my remarks, given that the demand-supply situation is almost in balance, we don't see, or we have not seen the demand of electrodes falling, because the electric arc furnace steel production has not gone down, and we don't see any increase in the production of graphite electrodes. We don't see any new expansion of capacities coming up, at least till early 2022, which is where our additional 20,000 tons will come in. So it's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, it's almost impossible to give you a number about the OPM, but the easy answer was that no, I don't think we'll be able to maintain that level of 60% that you mentioned.
Yeah. So you can expect it to correct it to somewhere near, say, around, say, 25% or so? Or better?
No, I don't see this going down as much to 25%. I mean, 60 to 25 is drastic. But again, you are trying to push me into giving a number, which unfortunately is not possible. I am not shying away from that answer, but it's all market dynamics. I mean, electrodes are sold and bought either on a quarterly or a 6-monthly basis. So nobody can predict what happens after 6 months in this world.
I just one more question. Your stock exports to Iran.
Yes.
Which were around 8 to 9% of your total exports.
Correct.
So which markets do you see where you will be able to penetrate to be able to maintain that loss on exports from Iran market?
Our exports are fairly well spread over. We are exporting to all the 5-6 zones of the world: North America, South America, Asia, Middle East. So finding that 8-9% market which we have lost because of the sanctions on Iran is difficult, but it is not very difficult.
Okay.
So it will all be scattered in the rest of the world. It's not one specific country or one specific area. We are talking about 5, 6, 7,000 tons. So in a market of about 650, 700,000 tons of electrodes, so we have to find a market of 7,000, 8,000 tons minus Iran, which is not a huge lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You are very helpful in the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Atul Mehra from Motilal Oswal Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Atul from the asset management team. Sir, just one thing. You spoke about you substituting UHP, non-UHP with UHP. So how is this likely to materialize in the sense that the 75-25 mix that we have? So how will this work out in your opinion going forward?
No, let me clarify. I mean, I was not talking about that somebody who can use.
No, not that. I mean your production mix. I meant that.
I mean, as I explained, we are competing with China in the non-UHP segment, and that is where the electrode prices have dropped because of the mismatch in timing that I spoke about. Because China suddenly has excess of electrodes, and obviously they have to find a market until the time their new steel capacity comes up. So that's where the prices have dropped. So we are trying to increase our percentage of 75-80% of UHP to the extent that we can find an export market for that. And to that extent, we'll keep reducing the non-UHP. And then of course, there's a question of availability of coke. because UHP requires needle coke.
Yeah.
So we are trying to find that additional coke. I mean, as far as the production is concerned, as far as the plant equipments are concerned, we can change it very fast. I mean, we don't require any new equipments for that. So product mix change doesn't take too much of a effort or too much of a problem. So we are gradually trying to increase UHP, which means we are gradually trying to export more and more of UHP and less of non-UHP.
And so in the past, you had mentioned that both of them are very complementary in the sense that if a customer is asking for UHP, you want to give him non-UHP as well because we have a plant of that kind as well. So will that not? So doesn't that hold true even now that he would require those supplies from you only to come by?
No, probably what you're meaning is that most of the large steel producers, when they buy UHP, they also buy a certain amount of non-UHP.
Yeah.
So we cannot give them more of UHP than they want, and we cannot give them less than what they want of non-UHP. When that percentage, as far as the customer is concerned, is not going to change. If he wants to buy, let's say, 80-20 mix of UHP, non-UHP,
exactly. Yeah.
that we cannot mix, that we cannot change. But obviously, if the electrode prices of non-UHP segment have come down because of China, the customer is also happy to source more of non-UHP from China rather than buying the non-UHP electrodes from us for the time being.
And
so that interchange can happen.
Yeah. So just one final question in terms of UHP prices, not the non-UHP, just the UHP prices. So how have they been trending? Say if you could talk about how they would have trended for the last financial year, because in terms of along the way, like say 1Q, 2Q, 3Q, 4Q, how would they have panned out for us over the year?
I'll ask Manish to respond. He's the chief marketing guy also.
Yeah, good afternoon. You wanted to have some flavor of the pricing, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Actually, it will be not right on my part to disclose a number, but it's not difficult to also for you if you make some back of the envelope calculations from our turnover, from our capacity utilization, you'll reach very close. You'll get a good estimate.
Right. And similarly, needle coke, how would that have moved in terms of say, between the first half of last year and now? Because obviously profitability is compressed in the last quarter, and it has to do with all the three elements: UHP pricing, non-UHP pricing, and needle coke. So which of them have, apart from the non-UHP, has UHP prices also declined, and have needle coke prices also moved up in that proportion to impact profitability?
Yeah, you see, if you look back 1 year, of course, the pricing of needle coke has been increasing every 6 months, and that is what is reflecting in the margins. About UHP pricing is still holding on. Whatever impact we are feeling is for the pricing on non-UHP because of influx of cheap electrodes from China. And this is what we think also would happen this year, that UHP pricing is likely to stay firm, while whatever impact will be felt on account of non-UHP pricing.
Got it. Great, sir. Thanks, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Madan Gopal from Sundaram Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thanks. My question was on the inventory built-up news that we keep hearing in the electrode space, and also ex-China. What is the kind of capacity utilization that you have seen with the EAF capacity globally? Was there any disappointment on that front in the last 6 months?
See, on the question of inventories, what happened last year was because when electrodes were short, there was a lot of, all the customers wanted to have some safety stock. So there was such a big lull of, bad market conditions that people were not maintaining more than a month, 15 days or a month, depending upon where they are geographically located. So everybody suddenly started to shoot up their safety stocks from 1 to 3 to 4 or 5 months, and which is what is being felt in this quarter. There is going to be a brief period of correction because the EF production, electric arc furnace production, continues to be stable, even slightly growing. And and all the electrode people industry-wide are working at 90% average. So we have to give time to customers to come to the regular inventory levels, and then the demand and supply of graphite electrodes, particularly UHP, is very well balanced.
What is the time period looking for this normalization of inventory?
Maybe another quarter or so.
Quarter, okay. In the meantime, do you expect UHP prices, because you mentioned UHP prices might remain firm, are you factoring this quarter of normalization?
Yes, yes, right. Because, see, there was a period when UHP prices continued to grow and grow rapidly. So what I'm trying to say is they're trying to be more on a plateau and staying firm.
Okay. Okay. And, okay, thanks for taking my question.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Sonali Salgaonkar from Jefferies, India. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the follow-up question. Just one question. What were our average capacity utilization in Q4 FY19 as well as for FY19 as a whole?
For the Q4 it's 80%, and also for the year it's also 80%, because in the earlier quarters it was few points above 80, below 80, but when we look at the whole year it's 80%, and for the quarter 4 was also 80%.
Sir, and if you could share similar numbers for Q4 FY18 and FY18 as a whole?
That was also 80%. I think we said in that Concall, and I think we have the figures. Yes, they were also 80%. FY18 as a whole.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Parthiv Jhonsa from NVS Brokerage. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir.
Hi.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, a lot of EAF capacity are non-China based. So what is the expected growth in demand once, a lot of these Chinese facilities start coming on stream and they start converting to EAF? So what is the kind of growth demand you are looking over next maybe say 2 years or 3 years kind of time span?
See, in China is witnessing a huge growth of EAF, and the way they are working is they're kind of more in a replacement mode. They're replacing blast furnaces and induction furnaces with more efficient and less polluting electric arc furnaces. Now, this is what is happening in China. They are undergoing a rapid growth of electric arc furnace steel production. And the rest of the world, I believe 1 to 2% is a very conservative estimate. That is what is expected to grow in the rest of the world.
Okay, and so there's one more technical question. So just to understand, how much of the product would be used to make, say, about 1 ton of steel? How much graphite would be used, basically?
It depends upon the furnace to furnace, country to country. But let's say if one were to put a furnace today which is using a super size, the highest diameter of electrode, the consumption in that particular furnace, one of the best, would be, let's say, 1 kg a ton. And let's say if you take a global average, I think we should have an estimate of 1.8, because if you see, there are furnaces which came 40 years back, there are furnaces which came few years back, there are furnaces which are coming today. So if you club all of them together and make an average of that, probably it should be 1.8.
Okay, and so on one of your slides you had mentioned that there is a bit of a slowdown in a couple, in some parts of the globe when it comes to the steel production, apart from China and India. So we have a lot of exposure to other parts of the globe as well. So how do you look and how do you try to tackle it going forward if the demand and the demand scenario from these kind of countries remain the same?
See, if this is the figures you're looking at are only for the first quarter, and it's showing that rest of the world the steel production declined by 0.8%. So as we go through the year, I think it should be a positive growth because that's what we believe, and it's because 0.8% is not as big a number. For example, had it been, let's say, 4 or 5%, that would have raised an alarm that probably this is going to be a negative growth whole of this year. But 0.8% doesn't really give as much of an indication that's going to stay this way.
Okay. And sir, last question. I believe we have a capacity utilization of about 80% as on date. Is this, can we grow, or is this a calculated move of just based on the demand? Or is there a more demand and we can grow and more, produce some more capacity?
See, our plan for FY 19-20 is to be at 90% level.
Okay.
As I was sharing with you, it is both ways. It's availability of needle coke also some inventory correction happening in the market. So that is how we landed up at 80%.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, sir, and best of luck for the this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rahul Murkia from Sumitomo. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Thanks for taking the question. So, just wanted to understand, are we still going on quarterly based contracts, or we changing that and planning to go for a yearly based contract?
We have not yet reverted to yearly based contracts because, as you know, Rahul, it has to be linked with the needle coke tenure of contract. If needle coke suppliers give us 6 months, we offer 6 months. And for a period before, let's say 6 months, we were not taking a chance beyond a quarter. But now it's, let's say, between a quarter or 2 quarters, but not beyond still.
Okay. And if possible, can you tell me how much capacity we have already booked for the current quarter, for the first quarter of FY 20?
It's ongoing actually, and it is difficult to say, Rahul, because we have Indian markets as well as overseas markets and at different cycles, a lot of inquiries in the market, and we have offering, quoting, and receiving orders. This is all those are daily based activity. So we are going with it. I mean, we are just in the process of booking because, as you know, if we book quarter by quarter, then all orders also come like that. The whole tenure has shortened.
But I believe that for first quarter we would have booked something in 4Q of last year.
Yeah, of course.
So I mean, so you're saying that we are still getting orders for the first quarter? It means that we
for
the first quarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sir, can you give a sense what we have from Tokai Carbon and Shortenco is they're still able to get those realizations of 13,000 plus for UHP, while for us also on UHP we seeing some decline. So where is the disconnect? I mean, why they are able to still secure it and we are not?
See, Rahul, the kind of pricing they're talking about, if you look at it closely, they're getting these kind of prices in Japan from Japanese customers, not from overseas markets. And you are in Sumitomo, Rahul, you are in Sumitomo. You'll be the best to answer this question to them. But this 13K, etc., is happening in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay. Yes. And sir, just last bit, you mentioned that you are looking for a utilization of FY 20 for at 89, above 85%, between 80 to 90. There was this talk when we were saying that we have got extra needle coke when Phillips 66 have done debottleneckings and all. So I mean, is the needle coke a problem or is the demand is a problem?
See, as I said, both actually. The extra needle coke you're talking about is what something happened last year. Last year, we could get out of their debottlenecking operation something extra. For this year, we are not clear. I mean, it's the same quantity which they gave last year, which we'll get this year. So it's not more for this year. This came out of the debottlenecking which they did for last year. It's both actually. So there's a constraint from the needle coke side, as well as there is some inventory correction going on here. So that's both of them together. There's a price target. So all of them together bring us to this level of this 80%.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you for
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jinesh Sangvi from Principal Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Could you throw some light on the overall demand for electrodes in Iran and Turkey, and how confident are you in terms of achieving the 84-85% kind of a utilization for FY20, considering that our supplies to Iran and Turkey could get impacted because of various reasons?
Yeah, Iran annually consumes about 40,000-45,000 tons of electrodes. That's the total market size. Turkey is also about the same. So these two have been our good markets, both, and unfortunately, both are impacted. So Iran exports have stopped. Turkey mills are working at half of capacity utilization. It does have an impact, but as the chairman said, that we are very well diversified to 30 countries. Yeah, we have to look for other markets. There's no doubt about it. And we hope and we're reasonably confident that we'll achieve the level which you were mentioning.
No, sir. The basic kind of query arises from the point that if your global steel production is growing at around 1 to 2%, and if in that it's only China which is kind of increasing the electrode capacity, the EAF capacity. So for this 85 to 90,000 tons of incremental electrodes, to find various markets, whether it will continue to put further pressure on electrode prices in the international market, despite kind of getting to that kind of a utilization for ourselves.
We'll see how it pans out. See, these are the total markets, but what is our exposure there? Our exposure is like was 10% in Iran and let's say 5% in Turkey, something like that. So we have to look at other markets. It should not be difficult. But yeah, these things are always there, these macro things, but there is still sufficient growth actually. It's just a matter of absorption and some patience to let that growth come in the market.
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Surat Singh Thakur, who's an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, actually, Iran is not taking any graphite electrodes from anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, electrodes are finding their way into Iran from all sorts of, via places. But as a company, we decided not to do that. So, something comes from here and there and there. This is routed from here and there, but we don't want to do that.
Okay, but sir, if Iran is getting electrodes from some other places, then in those places we can some other deficiency of electrode is there. So why is not HEG getting benefit from that deficiency?
That is actually a good question you asked. But you see, mostly it is the Chinese who are catering to now Iranian market. That is what we believe. And so the question you're saying is correct, that maybe there is space and go sell in China. Then I would say no, that won't be possible, because that kind of quality we are neither making and nor we have intention to going inside China and competing with them.
Okay, sir, but China is not into UHP market, and Iran are taking non-UHP from them.
Yeah, actually, you see, they are taking everything. One who doesn't have anything will take anything. So when Iranians are not buying electrodes, whatever best they are able to source, they are sourcing from the market. It may not be the right and the best product, but yeah, they have to run their plant somehow. It may not be the most efficient way of doing it, but that's okay. That's what else they can do.
Okay, sir. It is clear now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prahlad Jain, who's an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Sir, congratulations again. Very good quarter. Congratulations to you and the HEG employees. And my first question is that we have seen a 40% drop in net profit, and our sales have also been affected overall. Do we have a guidance in terms of what is going to be our net profit figure quarter on quarter for the next 1 year? Would it be 300, 400, 500 crores that we are looking at?
So that is not something which we'll be able to provide. And when you say drop, I mean, it's very ironic to hear how many industries are really having these kind of margins. But anyway, it is indeed a drop. But so we'll not be able to provide any specific numbers like the ones you're asking. But surely, please look forward to a year of very healthy profits.
Right. So we have actually done very good in terms of profits in 2018. Now, what is the reason for the 40% drastic drop in one quarter?
So it's both basically. Some, as I said, there's a portion of our business which is non-UHP grade, which has been impacted by this fall in prices from China. Also, sequentially, the high-priced needle coke has come in for the last 3-4 quarters. It was coming in because you book as you consume. So that is both of them put together. These are the reasons. Volumes are more or less the same, and that is what has caused an impact.
Right. So, but our overall production of HP electrodes is quite low. So, are we seeing a drastic drop in UHP pricing as well?
No, not as drastic as no, not drastic. In non-UHP, yes, you can term it drastic, but not as much as in UHP. See, in the last 2 quarters, Q2, Q3, we benefited from very high spot level of pricing. I mean, electrodes went above $20,000. So that was some kind of spot prices available at those times. But those are not ones on which the long contracts were made.
Right. So you said that you would not be able to provide us a guidance in terms of the net profit or the EBITDA margins as well. There are companies like Infosys who can give a forward guidance, and there is no penalty in terms of giving a forward guidance. So from the overall market research that you have and the demand and supply, is there any guidance that you can provide to the investors?
No, sir. No, sir. Infosys can maybe, but I'm not in Infosys. We cannot. Because, I mean, you see, Infosys can. Because now you see that too, if we do not have a full order book, Infosys can, because there are certain contracts which they have already tied with those American companies. If our both sides are open, we are booking orders as well as we are not, we don't know yet what the needle coke prices are going to be for the next half. So with both ends open, we cannot be, commit on without any basis. But yes, when we talk, we look at the fundamentals. The fundamentals are intact. There's growth in ES steel. There's the electrode companies are working at high capacity utilization. Needle coke is tight. Till anything of this doesn't get disturbed, you can look forward to healthy margins.
Okay. So in terms of healthy margins, is there any range that you can provide from an EBITDA margin perspective?
No. Health can be. Yeah, you can have your own definitions of healthy.
So say 40% reduction in a quarter is not healthy. So that is the reason I'm asking, what is your definition of healthy?
But then how many other companies have 70% margins?
No, they don't. So that's the reason we are asking for a guidance. Because you are there in the market, you're talking to your customers, you understand the demand and supply.
Yeah. Sorry. I cannot hazard any such guidance where orders and costs both are moving.
Okay. So last quarter we took a 15 to 20% reduction in prices. The channel checks confirm there is another 10% reduction in the prices for Q1 2020 as well, which we have supplied to the Indian steel manufacturers. Do we see this 10% quarter-on-quarter reduction going forward, or is this the last reduction that we are looking at?
No, it's so difficult to answer this, which is such a dynamic marketplace. It's such a dynamic marketplace. Which we are booking when we are talking about a quarter, we are talking to customers every day, up and down, and we won't, will not be able to comment more on this pricing part, unfortunately.
Okay. Now, in terms of Iran, when Iran basically, last Concall, we actually talked about Iran. And we were told that you would be looking at other markets as well. The company is looking at other markets. And it should not be a problem in terms of getting that produced to other markets. However, what we are hearing is we are still looking at other markets. So is that capacity being taken up in the other markets? Are we able to find other customers or no?
So we are trying actually. We are trying. We are every day. We continue to try because we have to find sufficient other markets to be able to relocate this displacement.
And in terms of the Indian steel, when we heard RJ sir telling us that there is a 6 to 7% increase in the Indian steel manufacturing, would you be able to provide guidance in terms of how is this going to affect our EBITDA as well as realizations here? Because we are supplying quite heavily to the Indian steel market as well. And overall, how much of UHP versus HP is the Indian market using?
About, let's say if this Indian market would be around 65,000 tons, about 25 of that would be the non-UHP segment and 40 would be sales. So let's say one-third, two-thirds. One-third of that would be in India would be non-UHP and two-thirds would be UHP.
Right. Okay. Now, in terms of there is a large inventory build-up which is seen in your balance sheet. Would you be able to give us details about whether this is graphite electrode which is manufactured and kept with the company, or is this NC that we see in the inventory?
No, it's actually, as I said, this quarter I would like to term as a quarter of inventory correction, where every customer has overbought in the last year and even which continued till Jan to March period also, and then everybody wants to normalize now that all the electrode companies raised their production by whatever they could, subject to needle coke availability. So now everybody in the world is trying to bring their inventories down to normal levels. And we need to have patience and give customers time so that their piled up inventories get liquidated, and then supply should be equal to demand.
Right. And do you actually see that demand coming in? Do you actually see customers queuing up now in terms of the second half of the year?
Certainly. Demand is there. There is no doubt about it.
All right. So what I'm asking is the demand picking up? Picking up in the sense, quarter one, yes, we were still booking orders, and we saw lower demand there. But is the demand picking up, and would we see better realizations and better demand across the year?
See, better realizations, and we have had fanciful realizations in the last year. It should be contrary because it's a more a period of stability where those sky-high pricing and spot level of pricing is behind us. We are more in a stable regime of pricing for the UHP at least, with pressure on non-UHP pricing.
Right. So this 10% reduction in the Indian market that we are hearing about for this quarter as well, are you looking at further reduction in the Indian market, or when you say stable, are you looking at stable pricing?
No, I can't say actually, unfortunately. I wish I had the answer, but I really don't have an answer myself because this is something which is deliberated quarter on quarter, month on month with customers. I really cannot say, and it also has to factor in imports and this and that, lot of things. So I can't give any guidance on that.
Okay, good enough. I had another question. This was about UHP capacity additions by Fangda, Jilin, and Kefing as well in the Chinese market. Now, Chinese market for HP has actually ruined our market as well because they are dumping a lot of electrodes in India. They are coming up with a lot of UHPG capacity additions, and how is that going to play out in a year or so?
See, we still believe, and if you hear the concalls of our peer group also, they also say the same thing, that it's about technology, that, it's still a long way to go. I mean, we have also heard about some so-called UHP capacities coming in China, but we strongly believe that is not the product. Merely by calling something as UHP doesn't really make it UHP. You need proper technology, you need the raw materials, everything. So it's whatever they're saying. Yes, I do also hear, just like you, that they are putting some UHP capacities, but it's easier said than done.
Okay, good enough. Yeah, those were my questions. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Devang Sangvi from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to regarding the capex number. How much of capex we will spend in FY19 for the increasing capacity, and what will be for the next couple of years?
It's about, we just started actually, when we placed orders, and it was in the month of March that we actually placed all the orders. So in this year, only about 50 crores has been spent on capex. And it will be, the rest of it will be spent another 2-3 years, 2.5 years.
So it will be more back-ended, or it will be 50-50 types?
No, it will be 50-50 types in this year and the next. In 1920 and 2021 should see equally divided almost.
So 1,200 crores is the growth capex what we are planning. So 600 is a good number to take.
Yeah. Leave something for the third year also. I'll have Gulshan answer this question.
In 1920 we are expecting a cash outflow of around 400 CR, and in 2021 it would be more than that, and the balance would be that in 21-22.
Okay, thank you, Gulshan. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Jinesh Sangvi from Principal Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Would you like to share in terms of gross margin how one should look at it, considering that we are seeing a fall in electrode prices wherein the needle coke prices are moving higher or kind of sustaining at higher levels? Are you guys working with any gross margin levels in your mind which you would like to maintain over a long-term basis?
Again, I tried to answer this question a little while back. You see, had the order book been fully booked for let's at least 1 or 2 quarters, the way it used to be in the past, when we used to start the year, we were always started the year with 50% of the orders already committed, and we also had the back-to-back needle coke prices. It was easier for us to provide a guidance. Now with pricing also open and costs also open, it is very difficult to even comment on pricing, except saying that the fundamentals are intact, we are going to have healthy margins. That's it. That's all what I can say, but we cannot provide a number actually, unfortunately. I wish we could, but we cannot.
But can you provide a range as such, maybe between 30 to 40% or something of that sort?
No, we'll not hazard a guess actually. No, we wouldn't like to do that.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anubhav Sahu from MC Research. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Couple of questions. One is, earlier in financial 19, you had guided for 85% kind of capacity utilization. What we achieve is 80%. So, want to understand the delta which is coming is mainly because of Turkey and Iran, or is there some other thing you want to have?
You can say that. You can say both. You are right. That delta is definitely coming mainly because of Iran and Turkey. But we also, suppose I could have done this, sold this quantity elsewhere, but then rest of the world was, rest of the companies were in the process of their inventory correction. So it could not be immediately diverted. So you're right. You correctly remember we talked about 85%, but it turned out to be 80%.
And so for the current financial year, the hope for a high utilization also rests on this thing that we would be able to deploy the sales which were targeted to Iran to some other sales.
Okay. Yes. You're right. That's the plan.
Secondly, sir, on the EAF front, targets from China, in one of your earlier presentation gave us some information that China would be targeting for 20% of steel through EAF route by 2020. From your opening remark, it looks like there has been a bit of a delay. At the same time, you also have an observation that they have also preponed some of EAF production which has been ahead of schedule. So
no, that was for graphite.
Like a bit of it.
That was for graphite. You misunderstood. What we are saying is that the graphite capacities were already there. So they started pumping electrodes. While it takes a while for the new steel companies to come, new steel plants to come up, the graphite companies which were already there, which were working at less than 50% capacity utilization, were very quick to start making electrodes, and then that is what caused an impact. So there's a time mismatch. What Chairman tried to say, that there's a time mismatch of new electric steel plants coming up and the electrodes. So electrodes started getting produced before the EF companies, EF demand could go up in China. So it is basically just a matter of timing. In a year from now, I mean, maybe by the end of this year, next year, when their EFs production will start to increase, some of these electrodes will get consumed in China itself.
Okay. Oh, got it, sir. And sir, on the electrode prices, and the back of the annual calculation shows that even for us, it is ranging around 11,500 to 12,000. Would you like to comment if this, as far as the UHP is concerned, in the near term, you think that it should stabilize around this level, or?
No, I mean, your envelope and the back of the envelope calculations are good.
But because most of the commentary was on the non-UHP, okay, they have been correction. But on the UHP, you think that it should stabilize this level? Because even the international prices are little...
If you would have heard somebody ask me this question a little while back, Japanese are talking about $13,000 price levels. In Japan, they've been able to do this booking. They're trying in overseas markets. HEG is also trying. Others are also trying. So anyway, we'll see where they are placed. So that's why we expect. See, this is if you hear ours and hear everybody else's, you'll find more or less the same sentiment, because we are all in the same industry. We are standing by the same calculations and same projections. They also say the same, that UHP pricing will stay firm.
Got it, sir. Got it. And sir, on the needle coke prices, I think in one of your media briefing, you said it is, as for the contract, is coming around 4,500 to 5,000. So this is a contract which is already in the financial statement, already has come in the financial statement, or is it something which will reflect 6 months from now?
These are the kind of pricing for the first half of 2019.
Okay, so these are the contracted prices, but since it comes with a lag, so it will reflect later on, right?
Yeah. That's right.
That's right. Okay, that's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be able to take one last question due to time constraints. We take the last question from the line of Payal Goenka from Ratnavali Investments. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, hi, sir. So actually, as in we know in the product mix, we have 75% UHP and 25% non-UHP. So I want to know in that part, like in 75% UHP, how much do we supply in the Indian market?
Out of that 75%, we are almost doing, one second. Let me say in specific numbers.
Okay.
Now, maybe 25% of that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So one more thing. On the needle coke, like users, we always tell it's like 1:1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like for last year, our capacity utilization was around 80%.
Yeah.
And out of that, 75% was UHP.
Yeah.
So that means we are using like, around 45,000 tons of needle coke for UHP.
Okay. It might be, yeah. So what is it that you're trying to say?
I'm just trying to ask is like, how much the proportion of Indian needle coke is being used? Is it mixed? The Indian needle coke is being mixed with an imported needle coke?
I didn't get your question. How much you want to know the bifurcation, how much needle coke we use and how much Indian coke we use?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I told you, that it is 25% of our production. And then what you're saying is right. Okay, 80% of capacity utilization multiplied by 75%. Yeah, you're close to the figures. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. So one more. It's the last one.
Yeah, sure.
So so we are talking about that China is moving towards 20% EAF capacity and all that thing. So doesn't China's EAF use the electrodes, the good quality UHP electrodes? Because the thing is like, now also the... Yeah,
you're right. See, it is like this, that you will notice this, and you'll find it from other sources also, that most of the furnaces which are coming up are not using the super size or big size electrodes, so they don't really need those cutting edge UHP electrodes. So it's all there. The chain is all well matched up, what the kind of coke they are making, the kind of electrodes they are making, and then they are setting up new electric arc furnaces which are using the maybe up to 20-inch or 22-inch electrodes. They're not setting up furnaces which are using highest size of electrodes like a 30-inch or a 28 inches. So because they understand that the market of UHP electrodes is very tight, and they may not be able to find it in the overseas markets.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take that as the last question. I would now like to hand the conference back to the management team for closing comments.
Yeah. Thank you, dear friends. We look forward to speaking to you in the next quarter. And we want to end this call with our remarks that we feel that demand and supply situation of graphite electrodes is pretty much balanced, and we are in a stable environment in 2019-20, and we expect to post healthy profits this year as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.